Welcome to episode 1 of The Arbitrage, a podcast that is geared specifically to or towards job seekers, career pivoters, personal branders, folks out there who are really trying to use language, words, if you will, to accentuate their value, leverage that little known value in order to kind of make themselves and their career improve. Again, this is The Arbitrage. I am your host, Dr. Samuel J. And I'll give you a little bit of perspective or background about myself here in 1 second, but I kind of want to explain the name of the show, The Arbitrage. Arbitrage is a financial term, an economics term, a market economics term, if you will, that really is all about capitalizing on an imbalance or a mispriced commodity. That's kind of the definition of an arbitrage. In lay terms, I kind of think of the term as leveraging something that is perhaps undervalued. And so this show, The Arbitrage, is really geared towards those who are out there trying to leverage those things that had previously kind of been overlooked. And specifically, because I am a communication studies professor, I am interested in kind of highlighting the ways that you can use soft skills such as active listening, effective communication, interpersonal relationship building, these kinds of things, and those strengths that you have in order to help grow and build your career. Obviously, build if you're just getting started, not starting off. Obviously, if you've been around for a while, we're going to try to grow or perhaps change up that career. Again, Dr. Samuel J. I'm going to be hosting this thing. Excuse me. I have a significant amount of podcast experience and a significant amount of personal branding or I guess executive branding, executive coaching experience. And that's why I even decided to start this podcast. So I started a company a couple years ago. It's called J Communication Solutions. You can find me at jcommunicationsolutions.com. That's just Jay communication and then solutions.com. Or fb.me/J Communication Solutions. That's the Facebook page. And that's where I get a lot of engagement and kind of interaction with clients and kind of potential customers. And then I'm also on Instagram, J Communication. But anyhow, I started this company a couple years ago. And the reason why is because I thought myself to be somewhat good at writing and kind of, I don't want to say manipulating words, but definitely putting words together in ways that made people sound and feel and look pretty compelling, right? Pretty hard to kind of overlook in terms of hiring. And I also noticed that a lot of folks out there just didn't maybe have the mastery of language in the same way that I did. Not because I was born with it, but because I was in school for so damn long that eventually I kind of had to be good at something. And so I launched this company, J Communication Solutions, I believe in 2014. I ramped it up a little bit about 18 months ago. And over the last 18 months, I've really kind of poured a lot of energy, a lot of effort into growing the business. And I've seen a good amount of results. I've been fortunate to work with some fantastic clients and forge relationships with some recruiters out there, kind of around the United States actually, who appreciate my work, who work well with me, and it just made me think, look, maybe I should be providing something to folks out there who haven't heard of me and heard of what I do, in order for them to kind of gain value and to build their own brand. And so this is my attempt to offer some of those skills. That knowledge to teach everybody a little bit about how they can build upon their own brand in order to maybe get a raise or obviously, to maybe even get a job to begin with. And so hopefully you will find value in all of this and you can begin leveraging it and, I suppose let the arbitrage take place. Other background, I'm a professor of communication studies. I kind of highlighted that in Denver. I specifically study rhetoric, which is, as Aristotle put it, the art of persuasion. And so that's what I'm good at. I'm good at putting words together and putting images together and making them compelling. Today, excuse me. Today I wanted to get started off. I wanted to kickstart this thing with a relatively simple subject, and that is the one-page resume. So over the next, 15, 20 minutes, if you will, I am going to discuss and highlight the things that during, the hundreds of clients that I've served, I've learned and I believe are somewhat true in relation to what needs to happen for a resume. in particular a one-page resume. Down the road, I'm sure we'll get into kind of different kinds of resumes depending upon your areas of expertise or the industries that you work in. But for now, I'm kind of focusing on the one-page resume because I believe that entry-level job seekers, even those who are looking for career pivots, need to stick to that one-page resume format, because I do believe that the competition that is out there for many of you creates a very, very tough hill to climb, and so therefore that one-page resume can, especially a well-tuned one, will definitely kind of put you above everybody else. And so the one-page resume, first rule, I've got a set of them here. It really depends on the applicant pool regarding whether or not you want to have that one-page resume. I tend to believe that if you are going to apply to a job and you're self-reflexive enough, you're aware enough that there are going to be, more than 20, 25 people who are going to apply to that job, then you need to have a resume that's concise, that's clear, that's effective. And that begins with really a one-page resume. If you get your ass out there and you are applying against 150, 200 other applicants, hell, even 50 other applicants, there's a really good chance that hiring manager, the person in HR, whoever's in charge of kind of sifting through this pile of resumes, they're not going to get any further than the top third of your resume. And for that reason, there's really no point in going beyond one page. But also you need to put, and I'll highlight this in a moment, the really key important elements in that top third, because that's how you're going to grab attention. I want to really think about, and I'll talk about this in the summary. I want to talk about with the summary. You want to think about it as your attention getter in a speech, right? A good speech grabs the audience's attention. It compels them to invest and to engage with the rest of the speech. You're going to want to do that with the top third of your resume, in particular your summary. But again, I'll get into that momentarily. So the one-page summary, right? Let's assume that nobody's going to read through that shit. They're not going to get very deep. They're going to get to the top third. So you have one page of real estate to really drive home your strengths, your experience, and what you can offer to this potential client or employer. I tend to believe that for those entry-level jobs, when there are hundreds of applicants, 60, 70% of them are going to be really, really qualified for the job. They're going to fit that call pretty perfectly. And that means in order to get yourself over and above the rest of the people, you just have to have a really, really sound resume. It needs to not have a lot of bullshit on it. It needs to be direct, to the point. It needs to be compelling. It needs to be persuasive. And that begins with the look of just the one-page resume. So one-page resume, unless, right, here's the caveat, if you will. Unless you have a significant amount of valuable experience that is applicable to the job for which you're applying. What I mean by that, right? I'll use an example for this. I did a resume a few weeks ago for a gentleman who's in agriculture, right? Kind of up there in ag. Went to college for this kind of stuff. But he was looking to not make a career pivot, but to kind of perhaps change positions and get a promotion, if you will. Now, this fella had 3 or 4 jobs, all of them very relevant to this position he was applying to, despite the fact that he'd only been out of college for, let's say, 6-7 years. That's not a long time, or certainly not long enough time to really warrant a page or a resume longer than a page. But in this case, the experience that had been gained, right, and the content that I could put on that resume, it needed more than one page. And so in that particular example, I believed that because of the situation, having longer than one page was okay, despite the fact that this person had only been a professional for maybe 5, 6, 7 years. So it's really up to your discretion to decide whether or not you want to go over that one page. But I mean, if you were spent 3 years as a server at Chili's, and then 2 years as a barista at Starbucks, and then you spent 1.5 years maybe as a, let's say, receptionist at a hospital. Well, you might have had a buttload of great experience that you think is really, really fantastic. But those careers are so different that if you're trying to get a job maybe in hospital administration after you get your degree, you're going to have to cut down on on a lot of those jobs and get everything into that one page, because quite frankly, while the customer service experience from Chili's and Starbucks might be really, really valuable, you need to squeeze that thing into, 1 or 2 bullet points under each job, because you got to save the real estate for the nurse reception, or for the receptionist job, the work in healthcare, and maybe beefing up your summary, your core skills, and your education. But again, we'll get into that momentarily. So, general rule: 1 page. If you think you deserve more than 1 page, then be self-reflexive, be self-aware, understand the applicant pool, understand the job, all of these things, and go from there. But I would argue, let's use 1 page as a starting point. Okay, so that's a kind of general rule. I should say real quickly, I guess, on experience, for those of you who are more experienced, because I do work with clients who are both everywhere from entry level all the way up to CEOs of major corporations. And so I think the general rule is every 10 years of experience you have in a specific career, you get 1 extra page of resume. And so that means if you spent 20 years as a vice president of, let's say, a brewery, then you get, 2 2 pages of resume. And it would just simply do you a disservice to try to cram all of the experience that you've had into 1 page, and it's going to look like shit. So you can take liberties there. But if you're a recent college graduate, and I work a ton with college graduates, I teach a class called Business and Professional Communication, in which I prepare my students they do their resumes, they do their LinkedIn's, they do sample cover letters. If any of them try to slide a 2-page resume past me, they get penalized, right? Their grades hurt, quite simply because they have not done the work or gained the experience to earn any longer than a 1-page resume, and it's going to put them behind. It's going to put them behind their competition if they have a more than 1-page resume. And I just don't want that for my students. Now, you have the occasional non-traditional student who might have a ton of experience that they brought into school, and that's a different story. I'm saying, as a general rule, right? Things may change, but as a general rule, 1-page resume. All right, so how do we get things down to that 1-page resume? I want to now, right, as we move on to this next point, let's walk ourselves through the resume, and I'll kind of hopefully guide you through that, at least getting started, right, on a really compelling, persuasive, effective 1-sheet resume. To begin with, the top, right? Name, number, phone number, cell number, easy to reach number, email address. Those 3 things, pretty self-explanatory. The email address. Make sure you have a professional sounding email address. My initial email address once I got out of undergrad was samuelmj@gmail.com, right? Professional, that's my name. Gmail is kind of a respected email provider. Something from your middle school days, your first email address. Probably not going to want to use it, right? Naughty Nancy 69 at MSN or hotmail.com. You're going to have a problem putting that on a resume, especially, I'm not going to say especially anything. Don't put that shit on a resume. Go to Google, get yourself a Gmail account, get yourself a professional name, email address. Use your Apple email address if that's professional, but in general, keep it classy. Don't let your email stand in the way of you getting an interview, quite frankly. All right, so email. The other thing is a LinkedIn profile link. Put that up there towards the top if you have it. We'll get into LinkedIn, I'm sure, several times down the road. I think what LinkedIn is doing or going to do is going to change the game of human resources, of onboarding, of hiring. I've got a lot of ideas for what they're going to do. They're just sitting on a shitload of data, let's put it that way, and they're going to do something with it, and it's going to change how people are hired and how you seek jobs. But anyhow, you can customize your LinkedIn profile. You can customize the link of your LinkedIn profile, right? The web address. You're going to go to LinkedIn, go to edit my profile, go over to the right, and somewhere there, I don't have my screen opened up, so I'm not going to worry about it. One of these days, I'll create a video to kind of help everybody through that. You can go over there, edit your or customize your profile. That way, right, you can say linkedin.com/in/Samuel-J, which is mine. as opposed to linkedin.com/IN/SamJ17432BPQW, which is going to look awful on the top of your resume. So do that. If you got a LinkedIn profile, you're proud of it, I suggest you put it up there anyway, right? We're going to be resumes are probably going to be obsolete before we know it. Until then, I'll try to just make money on them and provide you with wonderful, insightful content about resumes. But if you have a LinkedIn profile, make sure you include it. Make sure it's also cleaned up. All right, so that's the top. The next thing, right, is your professional summary and then your core skills. All right, so the professional summary, I like to stick to maybe 4 or 5 lines that really summarizes everything that's on the resume, right? Again, this goes back to, it's the attention getter of your resume. It draws people into reading and engaging and being interested in the rest of the stuff that's on there. I'm going to read you just a sample of one I did recently for a client down in Texas. I'm an experienced and driven professional with a diverse background in healthcare, education, and customer service. My time management and organization skills are strong, as are my communication and collaboration acumen, providing me with a strong foundation upon which I can lead and work with others to achieve productivity in a disparate work environment. Now, what does this mean? First line, highlight the experience. Second and third line, highlight the skills, the valuable skills, right? The leverageable skills, the shit you're trying to arbitrage. And then the last line is the deliverable, right? Achieve productivity in disparate work environments. Look, I'm a professor of rhetoric and argumentation. I think about this stuff in terms of arguments, in terms of evidence and claims and conclusions. Make that summary impossible for people to not be compelled by. All right, so again, here's my experience. Here's my core skills. And here's what those 2 things, those 2 pieces of evidence that prove that I am a valuable member of the workforce and that you should hire me, here's what they deliver. 4, 5 lines, sometimes a little bit longer, but there's your professional summary. And it needs to be sound, right? It needs to be good. It needs to read well. Read that thing 10, 15, 20 freaking times. Make sure it sounds good, it sounds compelling, because that's going to be the gateway to the rest of your resume. Second component, below that, I do a core skills section, maybe a core competencies, if you want to get classy with your big words. These are the things that, I like to scan through the old job call, see what the core skills are there that pop out to me, but also the things that I have, clients have, I don't mean I, and I incorporate those in there, right? These are a lot of times the soft skills, right? Listening, active listening, caring communication. You like how I got a little soft there? But they're also, right, the very, let's call them managerial or leadership-centric skills, right? Training and development, effective executive communication, collaborative communication, team building, problem solving, critical thinking, all of this stuff. Put those into nice, shiny, 2-word bites and get them up there in the core competencies, core skills area of your resume. These are the things, again, what are the most valued characteristics of an employee these days? I can assure you, because I've looked recently, 90% of them have to do with communication and people skills. So this is where collaboration is key, right? Effective communication, human or relationship management. These are the buzzwords that matter now. We've created a generation and a half of weirdos who work in these jobs, right, with accounting degrees, with mathematics degrees, who don't know how to talk to anybody. And, leadership is beginning to see, wow, there was some value to these humanities degrees that we shit on for 2.5 decades. Sorry, humanities professor. I went on a spiel there. So there's your core competencies. Include that. Now we're going to we're going to jump down here into professional experience. This is where you get your timeline of your experience. I like to see your title, the date that you held that title, the employer, and then the location of the employer, right? So, I got 2 lines there. I got one column, I got my title, nurse technician. The other side of the other margin, right? I got the date, let's say 2015 to 2018. And then below that, I got my employer, St. Anthony's Hospital. On one margin, the other margin, I've got, St. Louis, Missouri. Now, below that, I got my bullet points. Now, your resume, this is bullet point. I know people, oh my gosh, I want to put this into narrative form, right? I want to make it really creative and interesting, right? I decided to be a CNA because I was just compelled when I saw my grandma dying, and it moved me towards it. That's fantastic, right? For your LinkedIn profile. And I'm sure it really did happen, right? I'm sure your grandma's CNA, your provider really moves you towards that. You can tell that story in a freaking interview. You don't need it on your resume. So I like clean bullet points. Keep consistency throughout. So if you've got, a 2-line bullet point for job 1, make sure that every bullet point in there is 2 lines, and that every bullet point for the other jobs are 2 lines. If it's 1 line, right? So I like the consistency of that. I used to be all about symmetry in the number of bullet points you had. So every job had 3 bullet points or 4 bullet points or 5 bullet points. Now, if you were laid off from your other job, you had to work for 18 months, you laid off from your first job, had to work 18 months at Starbucks, and then got another job, in tech, and that's what you wanted to do. Then that's job at Starbucks, right? It doesn't need the same number of bullet points as the other jobs. It was a fill-in, right? It was a filler. I get it, right? I get it. So consistency in terms of the symmetry of the bullet points by line, right? 1 line, 2 line, 1 line, 2 line. Which one are you going with? Okay. So, highlight those jobs that are valuable too, right? I think I tried to pinpoint that a little bit, discuss that when I was talking about valuable jobs. But if you're going to squeeze things into one page, then, if you are a substitute teacher for 2 years, but you're really trying to get a job as an IT engineer or, a software engineer, you don't need 3 bullet points for the substitute teaching. You need 1, but save the rest of the room on that 1 page for something that's more valuable. All right, so there's that. The last thing is your education, certifications, memberships, what have you. Unless the education that you have is integral, right? A required qualification for the job to which you're applying, a doctor, a nurse, a professor, the education goes at the bottom. So I put it down there. And also, nobody gives a shit about your GPA. We are, it's the big kid world now, right? I think we like deliverables. What have you done? It's fantastic that you had a 3.8 with your humanities degree, right? Which is, I'm making fun of myself there. But out in the real world, I don't really care. I want to see what you've done. So even for entry-level job seekers, you got to highlight the things that you've done. So education, I like 1 line per education, per certification. Bachelor of Science, hyphen, psychology, comma, Southern Methodist University. And then the other margin there, I got my date, 2012, right? Or to me, it's better than taking up 2 lines with, Bachelor of Science, psychology, Southern Methodist University, Dallas, Texas, GPA 3.7. That's just too much information. Nobody cares. I want to know the deliverables. That's what matters. Use that 1 page. Use that space. Any of the certification you got too, right? Include that stuff. People don't know how to use Excel. If you know how to use Excel, find some way. Even if you've worked in jobs where Excel didn't matter, find some way to integrate that in there, right? To add that. People don't know how to use Excel. People don't know how to talk to people. These are the things you need to be highlighting. You got 1 page. You got very little real estate. You got to knock that shit out of the park. If you need help with this, you can email me. I'm sam@jcommunicationsolutions.com. Help you out. Mention the podcast. I'll probably cut you a break in terms of, I don't really want to sell you anything. The point of this whole show is not to sell shit, right? It's just to get content out there. So that way you all can start doing what I've been doing for people in order to get yourself a job or get yourself a better job, right? Leverage. So we're calling this bad boy the arbitrage. We are trying to take advantage of commodities, of things, of values that have quite frankly been undervalued. All right, so this is the arbitrage. Again, I'm your host, Dr. Samuel J. I hope you enjoyed that. See how often we roll these bad boys out. I'm a busy person. Got a lot going on, a lot on my plate, but I got a lot on my mind that I just want to spew out. Okay, that should do it for now. Let me know what you think. All right, everybody. You have a fantastic day, morning, afternoon.